Hey guys, welcome back to CrossFit FRF and our Ask the Coach show. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about footwear, but first of all I want to remind you if you've got any questions you can send those questions through to us, coach@crossfitfrf.com, send them through via email or jump on our Facebook page or talk to us in class of course, and we can try and get those on our next one of our next episodes of our Ask the Coach show. So we've had a few good questions coming through, and one of them was about shoes, so I thought I'd take the time to talk about a little bit about footwear today, because we do get a few questions about this. So yeah, shoes. So here we've got a running shoe. So a lot of people have an old pair of running shoes or trainers lying around, and they'll start wearing these to CrossFit when they first start CrossFit. And when you first start in CrossFit, I don't expect you to go out and buy a new pair of shoes. You don't even know if you like CrossFit yet, so you've got to figure out first of all if it's for you. But running shoes aren't really the best thing to be wearing long term doing CrossFit. Running shoes are designed to make your foot sort of go like this as you're running, which is great when you're running, but not so good when you're doing things like squatting and some of the other weightlifting exercises that we do. So it sort of tends to roll your foot forward towards the front, and that puts you not in a very good position. So it's hard to then have the weight backwards and sort of really get the glutes engaged in lots of the movements that we're doing. So we want to try and avoid that as much as possible. The other thing is these shoes have got a lot of cushioning, and they're quite soft, designed to absorb quite a lot of impact. But when you're doing something like weightlifting, it means that this base of support isn't that stable, so they become quite an unstable shoe for weightlifting. So I recommend as soon as you can, kind of getting rid of the running shoes and looking at another pair of shoes, because it's gonna serve you much better to have something different while you're doing CrossFit. So once you've done away with your wearing the running shoes to class, you might want to look at something else. And there's quite a few manufacturers that make something a little bit like this. So this one here is made by Reebok, and these are specific for CrossFit, but by no means they're the only brand or necessarily the best brand. There's also Nike makes some, Innovate makes some, New Balance makes some great shoes. There's a lot of great shoes around there, but what we'd be looking for in the shoe is that it's quite flat across here, so it doesn't do that rocking forward that the running shoe is doing. Okay, so it provides quite a good base of support and allows you to keep in quite a good position. So they're also quite stable, so they don't have that real sponginess that we were talking about with the running shoe. So they allow you to, they're pretty reasonable for weightlifting. Having said that, they're still quite nice, and they have enough cushioning that they do absorb some impact for some of the things that we do, like box jumps and skipping and burpees and that sort of thing. So they're not great for running, but if you were just running around the block 400 meters and coming back into the gym doing a few more exercises, they'll be totally adequate for that. I wouldn't recommend wearing them for really long distance running, but something like this is a pretty good all-round shoe. So just to recap, you want to be looking for quite a flat base, flat shoe, so that you've got the foot nice in contact with the ground, and something reasonably stable with a decent amount of cushioning. So these are a pretty good option for that. So lastly, I want to talk about weightlifting shoes. So these are a hybrid weightlifting shoe. So you'll see here that the heel is quite raised, so unlike the other shoes, the heel's quite raised, and then it comes down to the toe. So what these do is, when you're doing weightlifting, that allows you to take some of the pressure off your calves or your ankles. So if you've got ankle mobility issues, it allow you to get a little bit deeper into a squat more easily, and of course back out of the squat. So these are a hybrid weightlifting shoes, so they're not as stiff as some of the true weightlifting shoes. So they've got a bit of bend in the toe here. And these particular ones are made by Reebok, and they're pretty good for the sort of things that we do. If you were just going to have one pair of shoes for CrossFit, I wouldn't recommend that you have something like this. The reason being that these are no good for running, they're not that good for jumping. You don't really want to have them outside. Something like the flatter shoe that I was talking about earlier, that would be much better if you're just going to have one option. If you're going to have a few options in your gym bag, then a second option might be something like this, and a third option might be a pair of running shoes, of course. So the thing about this is that it allows you to get into, like I said, a much better position And that's really good when we're doing, if you're doing heavy weights to help you out with those mobility issues. That being said, just because you're wearing this and it helps you into a better position doesn't mean that you should ignore any mobility issues as well. So you still need to keep working on those. Right, so the last thing I want to cover on these weightlifting shoes is when to wear them. So if we're doing something like weightlifting, if you're in a weightlifting competition or something like that, definitely going to be getting the weightlifting shoes out. And if you're in class and we're doing some strength training related to weightlifting, so whether that be clean and jerk, snatch, or overhead squats, then these can be a pretty good idea. So in those sorts of times, that's a good time to wear them. Otherwise, if I'm doing more high intensity exercise, I'll try and the weights are going to be a little bit lower, I'll try and stick to that flatter shoe, but it's still got that stable base that allows me to move those weights safely and without being too wobbly on my feet. So another time that weightlifting shoes can be quite useful is when you come to doing, say if you're doing like a local CrossFit competition, they can just sometimes give you that little competitive edge, but I recommend most of the time training with your normal shoes, unless you've got some issues with your mobility, training with your normal shoes, and then you'll maybe wear the weightlifting shoes come competition day, and it's just going to give you that extra little boost. So I think that's about all I've got to say about footwear for now, but of course if you've got any other questions, feel free to talk to one of the coaches in class, or once again, send us through your questions to coach@crossfitfrf.com, and we'll do our best to get them on our next episode of the Ask Coach show. Until then, see you later.